Hi, welcome to the Nurture Pod. My name is Iris Sullivan Dare, and I'm here with the beautiful Ginger Edwards. And this is the place where we explore that edge between how things are and what is possible. How good can it get?
Ooh, I like that. Show me how good it can get.
How
It's a
good it can get.
great mantra. Hi, Iris.
Hi,
What are you nurturing right now?
I am nurturing a new way of working.
Mm,
I am I am trying to uh, do big, audacious things in a way that I don't just abandon myself
mm,
and then need to just really wear myself out, like you said. Yeah. So I'm
yeah.
I'm trying to I'm trying to reduce hand pies. We've talked about that before. Going above and beyond in a problematic way for those of us who are creative geniuses.
One way to put it.
What another way of saying of trying to prove my worthiness in a overachiever way. There's another base of that hand pie
Yeah.
phenomenon. So that's what I'm nurturing right this week
You
is
could be a genius at overachieving.
I am an overachieving genius.
You're
So
very creative too, so you can claim all of it. All of it. It's all a
what do
form
you,
of genius. Let's see. Did you ask? You have to ask me.
I have to ask you, what are you nurturing, my dear?
Thanks. Thanks for asking. No, I was kidding. Okay. Well, I love what you just said. I think so I'm going to just go with that flow what you just said, but mine's going to be really weird. It's much weirder than what you just said. Um,
You're
because I
braver.
have been, expect nothing less of me. I have actually been in this weird, okay, this is going to sound odd, but I have been thinking basically that all of life is a dream.
Mm.
And it's really helpful. So I wanted to share it because I know this is a very indigenous, it's an indigenous culture thing. And I had a journaling session where this was coming through like, what if this is all just a dream? Like what
Mm.
if and so I started doing a little look-see into that. Like what are the beliefs around life being kind of a dream? And by dream I mean a very, lucid dream, like where we can
Hmm.
act and do things. And I'm not saying that it's just a big hallucination that we're here, like we're experiencing Earth as a physical plane. But if you look at like what indigenous people almost around the world, this is kind of rooted in shamanism, which I've kind of started taking a little deep dive into lately, that no matter what culture it was, the root of almost every religious practice, spiritual practice is this kind of direct communication with the divine and this idea that this isn't really it. Like we're experiencing part of it. Like our part of our
Mm.
brain is absorbing this reality as this three-dimensional it's our left brain, and our left brain's tied into survival, so it has to really like segment out things like this is what's real, this is what's not, this is what's dangerous, this is what's not. It's like the part of the brain that's in charge when we're awake and has to get things done and hunt the animal or forage the bear. It's coming from a survival
Yeah.
evolutionary place. However, we do have this whole other right side of our brain that it's there and it's like way more wired into seeing everything is very connected. It's
Hmm.
not wired into fear at all. And it's like, why do we have this entire other hemisphere of our brain that isn't about survival? It's about this whole other realm and it's experiencing everything as connected, divine, kind of cosmic. I mean, we have that, it's hardwired into us to be in that space too. And it would seem that a roots of almost all cultures weaves back into a time when we were doing a lot more of that. We understood that as more of a natural principle. The left brain view of the world is one thing. And then, but that's not all there is. Like there's this whole other bigger picture that things have energy, that we're all related to everything, that we're just kind of one big cosmic swirl. And it's kind of a dream state that we can, that we're moving. So we have there's a lot more going on than we can see with our physical eyes. Do you know what I mean? So
I
it's going to get weird.
Oh, I am so into this.
Okay, good.
I am so into this
Perfect.
because I think that when I am operating in that right side of my brain, I feel very different in my body. I can
Mm.
feel it. Like,
Hmm.
and that's not the state I make can pies in.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
Totally.
One. And oh, I do like this very much, actually.
Yeah. So when it's affecting me and just a practical level, that I just kind of remind myself as I go through my day, like, what if I'm dreaming? What if I'm dreaming right now? And then I usually will say, well, this is a really good dream. Like I'm having this beautiful dream of walking on the beach with my dog, and there's all these happy people, and the ocean is there, and the mountain is mist on it. You know what I mean? It's like all of a sudden you're like, "Well, this is a really cool dream." And then you start looking at the crows on the beach and you're like, if this was a dream, that crow might have a message for me. And okay, so here's a weird thing that happened. So as I'm in this like walking yesterday on the beach, I see this little moth. I mean, I'm playing this game with myself, right? Like, what if this is a dream? And I see this little moth. It's like a regular little brown and white moth, and it's upside down and it's still alive. It's kind of struggling in the surf. So I put my finger on it, grabbed my finger, and I kind of cupped it in my hand. And I was like, okay, little moth, like if this is a dream, you should be able to tell me what's up. Like, do you want to go somewhere? And I am telling you, I got this really clear impression of like this part of the beach that it just came in my mind, like a little intuitive flash, like this part. I was like, oh, so you want to go to this part? And then and then you hear my left brain come in and be like, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to carry this moth in my hand because I was way on the other end of the beach. I'm like, now I have to walk with this moth. Like, and I was like, I could just put it in the rocks right there and probably be fine. Like it's out of the surf, And I
Yeah.
walked up to the rocks to do it. And then I just got this feeling. I'm like, this is not what the moth said to do. Like, if I'm going to play this game
You
that
got to
we're
play the
going to play
game.
the game, I'm gonna like lean into the game and not just let my left brain dismiss it. So I was like, okay, I'm playing a game. Let my left brain have that. And then the way I call my dog back is I clap my hands. And so
But you can't because you have a
with a
moth in
moth
your
on my
hand.
hand, I couldn't actually clap my hands to call Juju. So I had to be. It was just kind of a, walking on the beach with their dogs and people and kind of like verbally trying to get my dog to not be mischievous. Anyway, so I made it through the whole beach and I got to this one part of where there's these willow trees and I had the little moth and it was kind of like curled up in my jacket sleeve and I pulled her out and I was like, so you want to go here? And then I got this like, nope, not here, not here, not here. And I turned up this one little path and I'll be damned, there was moths flying everywhere. Like there were all these cinnabar moths, the little black and red ones, and they were flittering like everywhere in this one spot. And I was like looking up and down the beach and I couldn't see any other spot where they were. But this moth, I was like, that is so weird. And so I left her there with all her other moth like little brethren flittering around in the middle of the day. I thought it
Wow.
was so
Oh.
magical. And I have no idea what that means, but it was just like one of those moments where if you entertain the possibility that we're all in this connected symbiotic dream state, I think it just opens little portals like that for you to have these experiences like of interconnection.
Oh, this makes me a little weepy. That's really good.
Why is it making you weepy?
Oh, just because it's so like it's just so beautiful.
It was kind of beautiful.
Like, and it's like it's like we are multidimensional, interdimensional beings.
Mm-hmm.
And our our left brain just wants us to think we're just this one body, this
Yeah.
one way of this, prefrontal cortex.
Mm-hmm.
Like, isn't that the part the
Yeah, the prefrontal cortex is like the kind of the big thinking part of the brain.
that's
Um,
that
but they're
doesn't
the analytical, like it's like the
yes.
analytical part, and it has the hippocampus in it, which is related to survival brain as well. The hippocampus is like would decide from the survival like signal like what's going to happen. So it's really into control and organization and like making a plan, right? So that's all on the left. And I think the part of this that we don't understand because it's the water we swim in that from birth we have been brought up in a left brain culture that really focuses on developing that skill and that side of the brain only.
And
And yet we
pretends like
have
everything
and
else
pretends
doesn't.
the other stuff is like false. And people who have strokes on one side of the brain or the other, there's some pretty famous cases where you can function like without one half of the brain, but if the left side gets a stroke, the right side takes over, and people talk about it like as being like transcendent Buddha state. Like you're just there's no problems. Like you're just blissed out and see interconnectedness and everything, and it's just love and light. Like basically what the idea of nirvana is, like that is the right side not being interrupted by the left side. That's like an
Oh,
inherent state we all have. But we've been but the left side, of course, I think we need it to survive in our culture. But I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that when we even play with the idea of this is a dream, and that makes a little bit of space for our right brain to engage, and all of a sudden you're like, well, what if this is what if we're all interconnected? What if this is a dream? What if this and the left brain loosens up a little bit? And I do think we actually experience the reality of the world. And it's not a hallucination. Like we experience what's going on, but the left, if we're just there, we're actually spending a lot of time not experiencing things. You know what I mean? Like it's like a
yes,
very
yes.
it's a lens, or it's a filter.
Filter.
Yeah, and it's a very strong filter. So it's just like that isn't real, that isn't real, that isn't real. And certainly I could walk down the beach and just be totally in my own left brain, like figuring out my day and my thoughts, and like be mad there's so many tourists on the beach and my dog's being, you know what I mean? Like that's the left brain, like da 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 da. But when you're just kind of let yourself um yeah, play a little bit. So I just really recommend it. It's been something I've been playing with. It's very
Well,
helpful.
I do. Okay. I think that that is the key to letting it of like acknowledging and helping the left brain chill the fuck out.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's like it can't stop. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like that's not, like I think it wants that part of ourself wants to keep us
Oh
safe,
yeah,
so
absolutely.
like, and it's like that's crazy, you're gonna get burned at the stake,
Yep.
so like, I think it is good to have like I don't know if you knew Margaret Thierry, who lived here years ago,
Mm-hmm.
who passed away some time ago now, but she was a mentor to me and kind of an amazing, fierce woman. And she, I one time we were doing a market together, and I got something. I don't know if something got pinched, like a pinched my finger or something. Somebody had I had a small injury of some kind, and she's like, "Come over," and she's like the most practical, like dot to dot person. And she's like, all right, I know this is going to sound weird, but I'm going to, I'm going to, I'm pretending that I'm bringing down the golden healing energy from the universe, and I'm going to heal your hand now. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, and so she did it. And I was like, oh, I think she really is healing. That does feel better. And then she's like, all right. And but she said that years ago, like she was probably, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
she was older than we are now at that time. But she's like, if I tell myself it's pretend, I can get that part of my brain out of the way and access
Mm-hmm.
healing
Yep.
energy. And she's like, it's available to all of us, but it's hard for our brains to get past it. And so I have to like, I'm pretending this
Yeah.
game now, which is exactly like, what if it's all a dream?
Yep.
What if like, instead of like, give me the legal dose, what do they call that? A dossier or whatever, like the little packet full of proof,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Proof, evidence. Yep.
evidence.
Yeah, the left brain really wants evidence. Totally.
So if you just say, that's okay, it's all right, we're just playing a game right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, introducing the idea of a dream is really like I think helpful for the left brain's like, well, if it's a dream, then my job is like I'm
I
not
can check
needed.
out.
I'm kind of checked out. And we do have different states that our brain is operational in. Like delta is sleep, theta is this kind of trance, not quite asleep, not quite
Mm,
awake, in between state where a lot of like mystics and shamanism and healing and like states take place for us. So that's like where people do conscious breath work and all this stuff to try to get into this theta state. And dreaming's a little deeper than that, but there's like that, it is that waking dream state where that is where like kind of the most, I don't know, I guess if we were going to say power, we have a lot of power beyond what the left brain would assume that is judging it
mm,
as actual power. Left brain would say like, well, you need money and you need skills, you need a degree, you need, like the rules of the culture are really embedded in the left brain. And when we talk about nurture culture, I think this is an interesting conversation because we really are talking about a part of our brain that's been like overdeveloped. And so it is constantly imprinting like a rule book on the other parts of us. And so, yeah, a way to kind of ease that back, like any little loopholes you can find to kind of get around
It's
that
like
part of yourself.
it's like the fairy lies
Yeah.
in old Irish stories. Like they never lie, but they
Mm-mm.
rearrange things so that people make the assumption or the jump, and so that they can. That's what we need to do with that part of our brain. We need to
Yeah.
bring in a little fairy
Yeah.
glamour to help it chill,
Yeah.
chill.
Yeah, exactly. And don't argue with it because it's like it is an analytical argument part of the brain, so it'll win. Like if we argue, it's not like we're not debating with it. We're just offering up an alternative moment. Especially, and I do, I acknowledge that if you're stressed out or whatever, you can't. Like that's not, but when you have a moment when you're not
Hmm.
stressed out, and I think the keys are gratitude, like just dropping into like, and things that are easy to be grateful for, like, wow, this is like my feet feel good on the sand or whatever. It starts to like kind of shift it away from like you have to kind of be in the present moment, away from the stories that the left brain is driving. Like, what about this? What about this? What about like kind of easy to get back into the body. And then, yeah, just starting to kind of be in your heart a little more, take some deep breaths. This is what was working for me this week. And then introduce this idea that, yeah, I'm dreaming. Like this is my body's almost an avatar. It's like can almost see myself moving through it, but this is just one story I'm living right now. It's the brain has a
Mm.
story about who I am and what I'm doing and where I'm from and blah, 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 blah. But if it's all just a dream, that's just one story, and like really everything is possible. It's unfolding right in front of me, like what's happening right now, like it's actually. And so it kind of drops you into the present moment as like a lucid dreamer. Otherwise you see people, and when you're in that state, which is really interesting, you see other people in their thoughts, like walking down the beach or walking past them, and they're so in the dream as like reality. You can see how bought in they are. And when you're not in it, when you're kind of holding it very lightly, you're like, whoa, look at that person, like so into this, thinking this is real. Like that's crazy. Like, so it actually starts to feel crazy the other way.
That it's I've that I remember when I was doing walking meditation for a while when I would walk to work when I worked at the medical clinic. And so I
Mhm.
was practicing walking meditation, which is kind of that
Yeah.
consciously like opening up. And like it in the summer, of course, there's more tourists on the walk, the along the river, the bike path. And I totally have had that same experience of like, these people walking towards you and and like, sometimes they literally have headphones on, but sometimes they don't, but they're just like internal. And meanwhile, there's like
Yeah.
crazy birds and otters and like all
Yeah.
this like other stuff that's right
Magic.
there. Yeah. I'm just realizing my hands are a little blue because I was doing indigo. Um, yeah, totally.
But this is
Oh,
what indigenous people would say when they met like white people. They'd be like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? Like you're crazy. Like
because
why are
we
you so?"
are.
Because but I also think this is a thought form of you know what I mean? We have to catch it because it's a disease that has not gone away. Like we're still, and that we have to consciously be like, "Oh, this is a dream. Like this is a dream of that thought form." And it's created a whole structure around it. Like this whole culture
Ah,
is a part of this like dream form. But it's one thing like when you're inside of it and you're fighting against it as unjust or whatever,
you're
that's
still
great.
dreaming it.
But you're still kind of dreaming it. You're buying it like it's real. And I think that there's a lot of power that gets unlocked. And this, I mean, I've been studying a little bit of books on shamanism lately. They're like, yeah, like just drop out. Like you're not, the first, rule is like to understand that none of this is real. And so if you can back away, then you'll feel like where your real power lies. And it's not in playing this game because this game is an illusion. This whole thought form is an illusion. So when you have all these indigenous people like being like meeting these, colonial dudes, these pirates or whoever's showing up, Captain Cook and all these guys, and they're like, what? Like literally, you're mad. Like you're crazy. Like what is you just landed in paradise and you're killing everybody and trying to steal the gold. Like, what is going on
Was
with you?
gone.
Like you
Right,
are
right.
missing. And they were right. They were so right. And the thing is, we've been in that dream for what, thousands of years, at least, as a thought form of, I guess I'm taking it back to a little bit deeper roots, but and we'll talk about just colonialism, industrialism, hundreds and hundreds of years. It's been playing
Yes.
itself out. And I don't know, it's really interesting because I've always understood that there was parts of it that I didn't agree with and blah, blah, but it is a different quality to be like, what if we're just not using an entire hemisphere of our brain? And
It's
part of what's been going on is they got really good at telling us that the other experience was craziness or witchcraft or, pagan or, what, savage. I mean, think of all the crazy, madness, locking up people, destroying indigenous, wisdom and all these things, taking away plant medicine and drums and all these techniques that people were using to access this, to go deeper into those states.
yes.
So I also think it's a really interesting moment we're in right now because, plant medicine's coming back on, like it's becoming more popularized and people are
Yes.
exploring it more. And that is very much connected to this whole lineage of this is not all there is, So this is it's like a waking up.
Well,
Um,
and it's a waking up, not because like when you had that experience with the moth,
yeah.
you're like, what I'm receptive to receiving information.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, here it is, and you were
Yeah.
calm enough that you could, like you were
Mm-hmm.
calm enough in that moment that you could get into that state. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that sometimes the dream, like I had a commission that I had to deliver that I had agreed to months ago. And I've been working on it kind of slowly. Like I designed it, like blah, blah, blah. And then I delivered it this week. And of course it took longer than I thought. And like I was really stressed, but I thought I was handling my stress. And then when I when I finished, my body immediately went, ugh. And I was
Mm.
like, oh, I have to go to bed right now. Like,
Yeah.
and so I did. And like I was like, oh, I thought I was gonna do all these other things because this is at like 8 in the morning when I just did the final things on it. And it was like, oh no, like that. And I realized that I was holding myself in this like stress place, which is not the place where moths will talk to you.
No, no, it's not, but it's so funny. I love that image. We really want moths to talk to us. We want to be in that state.
As much as possible because that's
Much as
the that's the
possible.
that's the rest and repair. That's the
But that
maintenance.
it is. It's a very low stakes, right? I'm just wandering down the beach. I've walked on a million times, so I can easily drop into this very like dreamy state because I've got no demands on me at that moment. So yeah, but think of it in capitalism, the function of keeping us in this work, productivity, stress, deadline, go is very much in sync with this other part that's like, and don't question it. Like,
Yeah.
don't just look at your job and be like, well, what if it's all a dream and I can just go do something else and go pick berries? I mean, they don't want you. So there is a absolute function of the survival brain does not allow that. It's like, there's no time for that mystical hoo-ha. We got to work. We got to figure this out. So keeping us all in that state, 100%,
Yes. Yes.
100% like purposeful that we stay there because then we don't have time to question anything. We're just in it. We're in it. We're working it and we're trying to succeed as best we can in the dream, but we've bought in. Like we really think it's real.
Well, and I
And
think like
that's
we
kind of
talk
the
about like
bigger.
the flow state, like when you are
Yeah.
in that like or like I just when you just said work, 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 but I just had this like um flashed being a waitress. I guess I
Mm-hmm.
was a waiter. At that time I was a waitress, but now we're upgrading the language. So at the time when I was younger and I was being a waiter at a really busy place, super busy. And it was somebody, one of my coworkers is like, well, time is just an illusion. And I was like, what? It's like time's just an illusion. Like
Mm-hmm.
time's not the same. She's like, so
Absolutely.
just like slow down time. Like just take a deep breath and slow down time. And I was like, whoa, what are you talking about? But then I'm like, all right, if time's an illusion, and it's like, how can I, and it, this was this was before the Matrix, but like
Yes.
it was like, okay, I'm getting them their water and I'm gonna just swing by and put in that order and I'm gonna da 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 da. And like, and I realized you could kind of do this crazy thing where
Hmm.
I don't know what I look like from the outside, maybe, but like I could get, I could kind of like, I could kind of slow down time.
Yeah. Yeah. You
And
absolutely
like,
can.
I mean, and yeah, like it kind of works.
It
And
does work. It's so weird. I've had exactly that experience before. And I was on a car. I was driving to an airport. I was coming back from a festival, and it was Chicago. I was going back to Chicago from Michigan, and I was driving, and I was late for I mean, I was late. I should have been, I needed to be there like an hour before that, but I still had time to make it. But I was like driving pretty fast, 5 lanes of traffic, right? Coming into O'Hare. And as I was driving, I'm like, noticing the semi is coming up on the on ramp and it starts to tip over. And so this entire like semi truck tips over on its side and it's like sparks flying off it and it's sliding across the highway. And something right then like took over my body and was like, you got to make a decision right now. Like, and it was like this flow state, like exactly like slow down time. Everything started to happen in like slow motion. And it's like, if you break, you're going to be stuck. You know what I mean? It wasn't even a thought. I didn't have time to actually process this, but I was like, I just hit the gas, which is not what intuitively like what I would. So I got in front of it. I got around it before it actually like crossed over, and because it closed the entire highway for God knows how long. Like all five, it was like laying across the entire 5 lanes of traffic, and I was the only car ahead of it. So the entire highway in front of me was empty. Behind me was a semi on its side and like a million cars. And I jumped out of my car and I ran back, and the driver was fine. He was pulling himself out of the cab, you know. So that moment, I had this thought in my head, like, turn around and go to the airport. Like, you have the entire highway is open. And I was like, oh my God. So I went and got in my car and I just drove. And then it was just like that same thing. I'm like, I'm just going to do this. I don't believe this. This is going to work. Like, I'm gonna make this happen. And I drove and I got the perfect parking spot and I walked in and the entire plane had boarded. I got through security and I had a djembe, which is a big thing to carry on, you know. And I was like sliding it through security, and like this little voice was like, just lift. It had like this little, it wouldn't fit under the
uh,
scanner unless
yeah.
I physically pulled like the little flap up and like pushed it in. And you're not supposed to do that. And I did, and no one said anything. And I just like shoved my drum in there. They let it right through. I got it on and I walked up to the gate and they're like, coach is sold out, but you can have a seat in first class. And like, they moved me into first class and I sat down and
Because you
like
had
the
a
whole,
ticket. You had a ticket, but they'd already seated
yeah,
everybody.
yeah, they had seated everybody. I was the last one and they're like, just sit in first class. And I was like, okay. And I just sat, and the whole thing was like, I sat in the chair and I was like, how did any of that? I was like a dream, and it felt like I was so calm. I wasn't, I just like moved through it like a dream, like perfect example of the dream state. And I sat in first class and I had this flight and I was like, what was going on there? But like really, the message in my head was like, this is fine. Just move through it. Just find your parking space, lift the flap up, sit down. Like it was all just like, all right. And it was such a time expansion. And I was like, wow, if I had freaked out and slammed on my brakes, I would have been, God knows, I never would have made my flight. But it was just one of those
Well, and also
flow moments.
that you you like it's your higher self or whoever, like whatever, however you want to define what was assisting you. But
Hmm.
like like did you ever read those books by oh, what's her name? I'm thinking of the character's name, not the writer's name. I'm not going to come up the Circle of Magic books, and then she wrote all these books,
No.
a lot. They're young adult books, but the boy we were talking about it because Tully was re-listening to it as a little comfort read over the summer while I was home.
Mhm.
Um, but in one of those books, she describes like the characters, some of the characters, the gods inhabit them at certain points. And like
Mhm.
some of them, like some of the characters, like they might be like a priestess or something. And so it's like you can tell that they're being inhabited by the God
Mhm.
force at times. And then other times they're just themselves, the
Mhm.
flawed human. And like sometimes we are the ride. We think we're driving, but when we are the ride, of either our higher selves or gods or whatever.
Right, but I don't even think it's God. I think that these are the
I think it's
moments where
us.
it's us. We realize that again, this is a dream. Like just do it. Just move through it like a dream. Like don't go into the story of like, "Oh my God, this can't happen." If you just let that go and like, "Whoa." And I think there was something about the entire highway being clear that just clicked something in my brain of like, this is like magical. This is weird. Like this is extraordinary or something. And I just went into this other reality of like, this is for me, I guess. I'm just gonna just do it. And it was
And
in a
also
complete flow.
that
It was
you
so
that it
I didn't
was
question it.
but
Mhm.
because you didn't question it and because you embraced it and
Yeah.
because it was so
And I had
so
so much
intense.
adrenaline. I had also
It's
had such adrenaline from going through it. It was like this weird, like I was in an altered state almost because my body was pumped full of adrenaline watching that truck. And so I was like, woo, I just like rode it like the adrenaline, like a wave. And instead of it stressing me out, I rode it like I don't know, a wave to getting me where I wanted to go, which I think is available to us because even the chemicals, adrenaline, when filtered through the right brain, do not produce fear and shutdown and stress. They produce this hyper excited state that's like flow state. That's what the right brain will do with adrenaline. So the same chemicals to be in
oh
the body. Yeah. When the
oh
amygdala
oh
talks, the amygdala will scream, oh my God. But when the right brain receives it, it has a different response. It's like super activated, like almost superpower, like just go with this magical force that's like surging through you. Whereas the left brain's like, goes into stress and overwhelm. So
oh my gosh. This
yeah,
this is so cool.
it is really cool. The brain is so interesting. And we are, we evolved with this ability. That's the other thing is like, this is just as human. Like, it's almost not woo woo, like this is our human selves. This is who we are. We have this ability. We just haven't been taught to use it. And not only have we not been taught to use it, we've been taught it's not real, or we've had this, like all this messaging. And we've been really since birth hyper developing the left side to be in control of everything. And I think if we talk about creating a new culture, we really have to look at this development of the right hemisphere, which is art. It's all
Mm,
creative pursuits. It's music and sound. It's nonverbal, so it's like symbols are really powerful to the right brain. Um, and they don't need the language. It doesn't need language. It's like all the mystical symbols. But and I find that when my friend Za is doing these beach labyrinths and designs on the beach, that my brain, I just go drum for those. I just sit on my hand pan and drum while people walk this design. And it's so interesting because you can see like there's no discourse needed. Like it's just sound and
mm,
symbol. And I think I love about it so much is it's really right brain. Like it's just dropping you into, you just make it's just a spiral on the beach and some sound. Like you can make whatever you want to bet, or you can just receive it as that.
mhm.
And you can see people receiving it just like, whew, a nice little break from the, you know,
Well, and when you talked about the moth, you talked about when you went up that little path, like it was like you entered a portal
mm,
because you were in the right space. I think when you talk about there's all these different realities existing in the exact same space.
yeah,
Like there's there's universes. We are within universes
yeah.
all the time. Whatever. I need to watch that movie, but like the everything everywhere all once I haven't watched it yet, but
Hmm.
like but we are like it's all right there. Like so if somebody else who was in their grocery list or their to-do list had walked past that little
Yeah.
thing, that the beauty of it might have shocked them into recognizing it or not, like
Yeah, I've walked down that trail a million times. I knew where I was. It wasn't like a
right,
mystical land. I was like very
right.
familiar trail, but all of a sudden it was just a moment. And I do think that that's part of it. If we're in a dream state, that there is this ability. Like, I mean, if you think of astrology, which I love, but I love it mostly because it's mythic. I think we all have this like pull towards the mythic and symbolic, which of course there's your right brain again. But if you really think of it like the dream state, then yeah, these alignments and squares and solar eclipses and all this stuff, like these are powerful. I almost think of it like a video game where, the thing comes on the screen like a little power thing to go grab, like You like
Oh, oh,
supercharge
oh.
yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, these are like these alignments. If we're just energetic beings, and these alignments can be powerful if we're tuning into them. Like, so there is like a real world around us that's full of energy, that's all these things are happening all the time. It's just how much we want to engage with it. And I feel like we're just really living in this very small like part of ourselves if we're not engaging or not spending any time. So I've been doing some gratitude work in the mornings, and also offerings, which is another like that
Mm,
a big
mm-hmm,
the three things they say if you want to like tune into this more, I don't know, like shamanic's a hard word to use, but like, that this very old part of our brain, I'm going to say, this kind of mystical part of ourselves, that gratitude is one of the keys to get in, like for sure, because it drops us into like looking around and being aware of what's actually happening and how we're connected to it and how it's gifting us. And then also compassion and forgiveness, which you can see all these different religions, stemming out of these things too, right? Gratitude, forgiveness, because we can see the truth of it. We're only mad
mm-hmm.
about it because we're in a dream state and we're like, we have a story. Our left brain's like, that was wrong, blah, 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 blah. But if we just back out and we're like, whoa, we're all characters in a dream. Everybody's doing their own, everyone's on their own journey. Then we can have this compassion and forgiveness for, yeah, I fell asleep, did some damage. You fell asleep, did some
Mm.
damage. We were really locked into thinking that was real. But if you fuzz it out and you're like, this is just a dream, you can be like, oh, forgive everything. There's really nothing to forgive. This is just a part of being human. So that is like another core piece of dropping into this. And then the third one was blessings, which was interesting. It's like, because our job, according to the shamanic traditions, is like not only to be gratitude, but to actually extend blessings out
Mm, mm-hmm,
constantly. Like,
mm-hmm,
we also are a channel. So we are
mm-hmm,
constantly able to bless. And by you think about, like, we take things to priests or other people to have blessings done, but like that's, we are the one that's like a loss of a power we inherently all have, like that's
mm-hmm.
natural as breathing. It actually is the exhale. It's like our power coming back out. We have the ability to bless all the time, everything we see. So that allows us to say we are not just receiving, but we're also extending out.
And it's
um
it's 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 also simultaneously it is us and it is bigger than us.
yeah, yeah, we are a part of this bigger thing.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a unique perspective on it, right? Because we are living in these little bodies in a certain
Yay, bodies.
place and time. And I don't know, I think it's really cool. So those are the things that I've been trying to practice: the blessings, and the forgiveness and compassion, having that big picture, kind of holding it as a dream state, and then all the wrongs and thoughts that are, agitate you, holding that as a dream. And then, yeah, gratitude, of course, just dropping into being grateful.
Oh my gosh. All of this is making me. Yeah. So we started this out with uh me saying I'm working on not doing the
Yeah,
not playing the rodeo of the game
the left
of
brain.
of the
Mhm.
left brain. And I'm just realizing that this whole conversation was totally like this gift of like it's like there of expansiveness. Like I could have been working right now.
Yep.
And if you hadn't said, hey, I would have been working
Mm.
probably. And even though
Mhm.
I'm trying, because I would have been like, I can like relax for a little while and then I'm like, my to-do list. And
Mhm.
that unconscious ramping it up, which is really like pushing on the slider farther and farther to the left brain,
Mhm.
I think. And so like I think it's a conscious choice of making an agreement with that left brain
Yep.
to spend some time with your right brain world and
Yeah.
connect to yourself, to the earth, to the beloveds, to the natural world, to the
Yeah.
ground squirrel that just started hanging out on our deck.
Yeah, I mean, think of it as like really doing, like, fully inhabiting your life and your body and your brain. Yeah, I think that's
Hmm.
what I've like. I want to fully inhabit my life, and I don't think I've been. I think I've been in a very small, like, little
Hmm.
space with it. And the more frustrated, resentful, anxious, depressed, like those are all cues that you've bought in. pretty like you're in the dream, but you're bought in as the dream is this is real. And those are states that kind of shut down our hearts and like make us feel less powerful, like that we can't bless anymore because we don't have anything. So when we start to shift these states around, I think we also, it's very powerful. If the story of the culture is that our power comes from controlling circumstances, getting the right things, the story of, having more money or whatever, the power, like what, but I really think that's false. It's driven colonialism all over the world, this story of rich, powerful control. But what if in the dream, the power was just to be more and more and more aware of
Hmm.
the dream, like that we're it's just to be more and more lucid and active in as a dreamer. And that's the levels you're climbing. And it's all just like being as, and the shamans would say the portal is the heart. That's our
Mm.
body's portal. This is so when the heart is shut down, we lose our ability to see this big picture. So keeping your heart open as much as possible and then moving from that space, which is all the things I talked about. Those are all like you can see how those would all open the heart and
Yes, yes,
expand that.
yes. And it's yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. I can't even add. It's I'm all thank you.
You're welcome. Things that Ginger thinks about over the week. And I
Oh,
also shout out to my relaxed summer because this is coming to me from this level of relaxation, not running a tea company, not farming, not hustling so hard. I'm getting these kind of downloads and awarenesses as I calm my nervous system down. So yeah, it's a privilege. And it's also, I think it's, yeah, it's so healing, to
oh.
slow down because to try to like throw this on top of like it's not going to happen. Like if you're hustling that hard, which is there's nothing wrong with that by the way, absolutely nothing wrong with it, but just know that as soon as we get into hustle mode, our left brain kicks on because we need it to, and it's great. Um but that's not all there is.
And
Not not even close.
not all there
Not
is.
even close.
And I think that when you look at healing in the body, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, like I think that's also
Yeah.
another framing of this. And we need to totally let it down. And it's like, and I think it's the frog in the heating pot. We can't, like, that's like I said when I turned in that project, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, like I was so, and our son who came home for a few weeks in between his terms, and he did a summer abroad, so he was only home for a few weeks, but he was like, I can't believe I'm so tired every day. I can't believe I'm so tired. And it's like, well, you've been operating at such a fast
Mm-hmm.
pace for, well, since January,
Yeah.
solid, like just super hard working and
Mm-hmm.
doing all this stuff. And like, it's like your body is just like, oh, I'm safe now. And it's like, if all you do is sleep and eat for 3 weeks, that's the huge win. And like, you could just watch him get more and more like relaxed and more
Mm-hmm.
embodied and
Mm-hmm.
himself and like, yeah. And so,
Yeah, and I'm saying we're doing this. I want to just add to this is for me. This is for my own happiness, my own joy, my own, feeling of aliveness and empowerment that I do any of this playing around. You know what I mean? So like it's not, it's also tied in with it's self-care, but that's such a weird term. It's it's not self-development. I mean, all these things have been co-opted and like packaged up and sold to us as like again, this kind of achievement, like but I really just want to say that it's more it doesn't like I said it feels very selfish in a lot of ways to kind of like be like I just want to know all about the cool shit I can do. You know what I mean? Instead of and it's kind of dropping this thought form of like I'm so responsible for being a good person and you know what I mean? It's like that's a story and it's like whoa, what if this is all a dream and this is just my body and my reality and my brain, like how interesting. I'm kind of just fascinated from a purely, and that does take a certain amount of space to kind of just play with that arena. And indigenous people had that space. We're not designed to run this hard. We're not designed to have little rectangles in our pockets that project the stress of the world into our brains. We're not like most of the time that humans have spent on this planet, we had plenty of time to play in the
Right.
mystical realm.
Yeah.
Tons of time. And and nature was omnipresent. Like it wasn't like an afterthought. That was our very being was tied to it intrinsically. So, like I said, this is a part of us. But I do believe, yeah, there's big levels of healing there.
The thing that Tully said that I thought was really interesting is that when people would ask him about coming, he was in Dublin and then he visited Germany, a friend in Germany as well. But people would ask him if I go to the States, where would you recommend going? He got asked several times and he's like, I realize my advice, which I think is kind of, for some people is kind of weird maybe, but he's like, his advice to people was to go out west to a place that you can drive enough hours to be away from light pollution
mm-hmm,
and spend some time looking at stars in a really dark place. Like
mm,
because go visiting New Mexico and visiting my sister was so impactful because we're here, it's pretty dark where we are. We don't have high light pollution, but we do have high cloud cover and
yeah.
high moisture in the air. So even if it's a clear night, if it's 85% humidity, we're not seeing the stars like you do in a really dry place. And he's like, I just feel like that chance to see so many stars is such a perspective
Mm-hmm.
expander. And um and I thought that was such a wise thing. And what you were saying, like what happens
Big
when we
picture. Yep.
get big, like get some perspective,
Mm.
and then it's like, oh, I can forgive you. You were just
Yeah.
asleep.
Yeah, and
Oh,
we're
I
just
can
like these
forgive
little humans
myself.
on this
Yeah,
planet hurtling through outer space. Like it's all like it's so wild. And the gratitude comes naturally because it's so wild that we get to be here.
right,
I was hanging out
right.
with my friend. My poor friends have to listen to this. And you're like going
Oh,
through this
the
whole thing
lucky
with my friend,
friends.
and we're eating pizza, and I'm like, we're just like sitting here having a cool conversation and eating pizza. I'm like, this is like the ultimate like awesomeness. Like we get to have these bodies and eat pizza. Like we're not in danger. Like it's amazing time to be alive. It really, really is. It's an incredible dream. Like we're dreaming up some crazy stuff. And I don't know, like I said, it just comes back to pure enjoyment. So that's what I'm offering it. Like not, I guess there's no like,
Not as a to-do list.
yeah, it's not a to-do list. I'm just saying, like, just purely selfishly, this is fun and makes life more fun and it makes you happier.
All
That's
right.
what I'm offering it as.
All right. This is good because I have, what is it, 80 days before I
We
have
love
a
our
lot of work between me
we
and
love
then.
our left brains for coming up with that. Like, oh, and by the way, you have 80 days to I
But
know.
my goal is to take days off or take out, like it's like, yeah, like I
I'm
I
saying
have
it
to I have
at
to just
any point you can drop into this. That's the other thing. It's like
yes,
we
yes.
can be having a day where you're doing productive stuff. I think it's our ability to go back and forth. It's
I
like it's
think
we can
I
be in our
and
left brain, give our left brain a job. It's good at stuff. Like we need to be in our left brain. And it's good to be able to be like, and I'm gonna toss it back to the right brain for a minute and remember this is all a dream. This is just a.
and in that whole thing of like trying to make time and space accommodate my to-do
Yeah.
list rather than adjusting my to-do list to fit the time and space that I have available to me.
And also dropping into the time and space and knowing that they're malleable.
Yes.
They're an
Yes.
illusion and they're fiction. So
Yes.
you actually have a lot of power when you let go of that construct and be like, whoa, what if this is all just and things do time expands. We know when we're doing art how much time expands. We can be there for hours and hours. It feels like
But
5 minutes. Like,
it's in the right part of your brain. It's not
yeah.
you that doesn't happen if you're just like in the left brain, Virgo brain. I love my Virgo brain, but it's not you don't have the no moths are talking to you. That is my new
Everybody, the
favorite
goal
thought.
is to have moths talk to you.
Yes.
The new power. Well, everyone, we enjoyed sharing our weird stories. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you for
you. I
listening.
love you.
It's all a dream, y'all. Don't worry about it. Go
Oh
have
man,
fun.
the songs I want to start singing to you right now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.